Yo, 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 what up, man? Welcome to another episode of Damn You2 Sports Talk. It's your boy Ralph Sneaks back with another one. Um, Make sure y'all go over to YouTube, follow the page, subscribe, you know what I mean? Hit the notification bell so you can get notified when I drop new content. Subscribe to the content on YouTube. Head over to Instagram on the sports page. It's damn underscore YouTube underscore sports talk. You want to head over to my personal page, follow that too. It's Ralph underscore sneaks. Twitter X is damn you2 sports talk. Make sure y'all follow. Make sure y'all subscribe. Make sure y'all hit that notification bell so you can get notified when I drop new content. But I'm back with another episode, man. We're gonna finish this thing off in the NFL talk. We're gonna get into two divisions in the NFC. There's the NFC North and the NFC South. That's gonna wrap up my division talk for the NFL because we got the NFL actually kicking off in a few weeks. I think college football kickoff actually this weekend when you got Florida State, Georgia Tech. I think they play in Ireland. And then the following weekend, Labor Day weekend or whatever, you know what I mean? That's when everybody else kick off. And then you had the NFL officially kicking off after that. So football right around the corner, you know what I mean? Preseason already been kicked off. But the official games, we ain't too far from that, man. A couple weeks away from the official regular season games that count. You'll know who made the team on the roster. You'll see more roster cuts in the NFL. You'll see some moves being made. But we're gonna get into the NFC North and the NFC South. That's gonna wrap up my, predictions around the NFL. I broke them down by the league on previous episodes. And just gonna finish it off on this episode. But let's get to it, man. Without further ado, let's go. Let's start with the NFC North. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna start with the Chicago Bears. They had the first overall pick in this past draft. They took Caleb Williams. They actually had two high picks in this draft. Caleb Williams and they took Rome Odunze. Caleb Williams with the first overall pick by way of the Carolina Panthers, and I'm gonna get into them later on once we get to discussing the NFC South division. And they also took wide receiver Rome Odunze out of Washington. Let's look at who they lost. They lost Eddie Jackson. He ended up going to the Ravens. Justin Fields traded to Pittsburgh. Darnell Mooney, they lost him to Atlanta. And they lost a D tackle, Justin Jones. But you look at what they added, and like I said, with the first overall pick and Caleb Williams, they added him with the first overall pick out of Oklahoma. They traded for Keenan Allen. As we know, the Chargers were having a semi-fire sale at that position. But they traded for Keenan Allen, brought him in. They got DeAndre Swift, brought him in. Jonathan Owens, they brought him in from the division rival Green Bay Packers. Kevin Byard was previously with the Eagles. They brought him in. Tight end Gerald Everett brought him in. Dante Pettis brought him in. And like I said, he drafted Rome Odunze as well and re-signed Jalen Johnson. And they tried to get Matthew Judon. So, they did inquire about Matthew Judon. I was from what I read and what I saw that Matthew Judon, that the Patriots had a trade in place with both the Falcons and the Bears, and they went to Matthew Judon, and Matthew Judon said he preferred to go to Atlanta over Chicago, so they took the Atlanta deal over Chicago because that was the destination preferred by Matthew Judon. Now, I'm not sure how much truth is to that. Sometimes they put rumors out, but that's what I heard. So I'm just assuming that the Patriots received the same offer from the Bears that they received from the Falcons, because I don't see a situation, a scenario where Atlanta offered a third-round pick and then Chicago offered 2 third-round picks or a second-round pick. And I don't see a situation where the Patriots said, well, we're just going to send you to Atlanta and take less of a deal in return for you. If the Bears gave up 2/3 or a second, I don't see a scenario in which they turn that down just to take a third to send him to Atlanta. So I'm guessing that the deal that they received from the Bears was the same type of deal that the Falcons got. So it didn't matter what they sent him. So they just asked him what he wanted. And, rumor came out he preferred Atlanta. So that's where they sent him. So they did inquire about Matthew Judon. They tried to get him. I can understand why, because they lost a D lineman in free agency. And they wasn't that good up front anyway until they traded for Montez Sweat. So once they traded for Montez Sweat, he came over there and led the team in sacks. And he basically came over there halfway through the season. You know, in that time period, he led the team in sacks. So that they needed D-line help. So they did inquire about Matthew Judon to add him up front to go opposite of Montez Sweat, but ultimately it didn't happen. He ended up getting traded to Atlanta instead. So you're looking at the wide receiver core there. You got DJ Moore, Rome Meduze, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet still there. You got DeAndre Swift who can catch it out the backfield. So you got a solid team right there. If you Caleb Williams, you know what I'm saying? You much improved. Chicago Bears last year somehow managed to win 7 games. They finished last in the division, going 7-10. So with the upgrade that they did, whether it's through the draft and in free agency, this team is much better. Should be, on paper, but the season hasn't been played yet. But so far, what we're seeing of Caleb Williams in the preseason, they got a promising future. They got a damn good future. As we know, the Chicago Bears are not historically known for offense. They're more historically known for defense. If anything, the best teams, you think of the Chicago Bears, you think of defense. You don't think of offense. There's been far more times they've been better defensively than offensively. I mean, it's a good day if you're Chicago Bears fans looking at what you did, and you took full advantage of the Carolina Panthers. I mean, you just took full advantage of the Carolina Panthers. And why wouldn't you if they was laying it out to you like that? So I'm gonna take the Chicago Bears. Even though they're gonna be much better on paper. You know what I'm saying? I don't think they're going to finish last in this division this year. I think they're actually going to bump up and finish third in this division. They're going to finish behind Detroit and Green Bay for third in this division. If they won 7 games last year with the situation they had with the way they was running Justin Fields and what they didn't have compared to what they now have and the situation that it was last year, if they won 7 games with that, I think the Chicago Bears with the team that they have now, I think they can win about 9 games. So I think the Chicago Bears can go 9-8 and finish better than last in this division this year. So I'm gonna take them to finish third in this division. I'm gonna take them to win 2 more games than they won last year. They were 7-10 last year, so I think they can go 9-8 this year in that division with those additions. Especially, it was a nice mix of additions, not just on one side of the ball, but they lost some, but they gained more than they lost. Especially offensively, they should be much better with that wide receiver group and DJ Moore, Rome Meduze, and Keenan Allen. So I'm looking for them to go 9-8, and not finish last in this division this year. With the additions that they made. They still got a little wiggle room to possibly. Not sure, you know what I'm saying? We still got people that's going to get cut, get released. You know what I mean? So, they kind of middle of the pack when you look at the cap space. So they still got a little room to sign somebody if they get released. So I'm looking for this team, like I said, to go 9-8 and not finish last in the division this year. Moving on, Minnesota Vikings, who finished third in the division last year at 7-10. Kevin O'Connell, head coach. Looking at what they lost in Josh Dobbs, they lost Kirk Cousins to Atlanta, they lost Joshua Dobbs to San Francisco, Danielle Hunter, they lost him to Houston, KJ Osborne, the wide receiver, they lost him to the New England Patriots, Jordan Hicks, they lost the linebacker to the Cleveland Browns, and DJ Wonnum, they lost him. They also lost him to the Carolina Panthers. They lost those guys in free agency, but they re-signed Justin Jefferson, $35 million a year, making him the highest paid wide receiver in the league. JJ McCarthy out for the season, the first round draft pick, who they took 10th overall. He is out for the season. Suffered an injury, done for the season. Jordan Addison, he had a DUI earlier, and he's also suffered an injury, so we're not sure how long he's going to be out. I think he suffered like a foot or ankle injury. Not sure how long he's going to be out and how much of the season he's going to miss or not. We don't know that. But like I said, they drafted J.J. McCarthy with the 10th overall pick, but he out for the season. So, you're going to have Sam Darnold, who you added. So you basically just switched out with San Francisco. You got Sam Darnold return, and then you sent Joshua Dobbs there because Joshua Dobbs is now who you had in Minnesota is now in San Francisco, and who San Francisco used to having Sam Darnold, was now in Minnesota. So you just basically swapped the two quarterbacks between the two teams. That's all you did. You added Dallas Turner with your first round pick, 17th pick overall. You just recently added Stephon Gilmore. You added running back Aaron Jones from division rival Green Bay Packers. Shaquille Griffin is there. Jonah Williams, Alexander Madison, who you released, or who was released. Who you released, and he's over there in Las Vegas, I believe. Yeah, he's with the Las Vegas Raiders now. You released him. Kyrie Jackson. Before I go any further, let me just say RIP to Kyrie Jackson. My condolences to his family and close friends. He was a fourth round cornerback that is drafted out of Oregon in this year's draft. He was killed in a car crash. Maybe like a couple months ago. He was killed in a car, unfortunate incident that happened. You know, he didn't even get a chance to really start his NFL career because of this. So my condolences to Kyrie Jackson's family and close friends, and RIP to him. So, you know, they've been kind of hit with some devastation, you know, this offseason. You know, your first round quarterback who you took 10th overall is done for the season. You had a fourth round draft pick and Kyrie Jackson, who I just mentioned, who was killed in a car crash early in his offseason. So, you know, and they just recently signed, like I said, Stephon Gilmore to a 1-year deal. So you've been hit pretty hard if you are so far in his offseason if you're the Minnesota Vikings. And like I said, Jordan Addison had the DUI situation. Not sure what's going to come out of that. And he's also injured and not sure how long he's going to be out dealing with his injury. It was either to his ankle or his foot, one of the two. But he's down. So if you're the Minnesota Vikings, this is the team that I think Kevin O'Connell is a good enough head coach offensively where he can get some things done and maneuver some things around. But the problem is you have Sam Darnold as is going to be your starting quarterback. And Sam Darnold ain't showed us nothing. You know, Sam Darnold didn't show us nothing with the Jets. Then he got traded over to Carolina and didn't show you a damn thing with Carolina. Then he went out to San Francisco and backed up Brock Purdy, so you didn't see nothing from him, or he didn't show you nothing there either because he was a backup. And now he's in a situation where he was going to be probably a backup to J.J. McCarthy but now that we won't know because J.J. McCarthy's out for the season, that Sam Darnold has to be the starter by default, unless they look to bring in another quarterback that has shown better flashes as a starter than Sam Darnold has, you know. But I don't really look for the Minnesota Vikings to do much in this division. Matter of fact, I got the Minnesota Vikings finishing last in this division. I think they're gonna be right around the same thing they were last year, around 7-10. You know, I think they're good enough to win 7 games this year. You know, they were rolling last year up until Kirk Cousins had a season-ending Achilles injury. So, you know, they were pretty solid. Kirk Cousins was looking very well, and they was looking damn good up until that point. But like I said, you drafted J.J. McCarthy. He out for the season, but you're going to Sam Darnold, unless they done added somebody to the roster that I don't know about or completely forgot about, that has shown better flashes starting as a quarterback than Sam Darnold had. This is the guy that you're going to go with. This is the guy that you're going to have throwing passes to Justin Jefferson, who you just made the highest paid receiver in the NFL with $35 million a year. The contract he just signed this offseason. So I'm not sure, you know, exactly what the hell the Minnesota Vikings are going to do to get through this season with Sam Darnold as the QB. But as of now, I got them at the same thing they were last year, 7-10. I think they're going to finish last in this division. I don't really see much progress that Sam Darnold can give you. I'm not sure how he's going to look in Kevin O'Connell's system, you know, because like I said, he didn't show you much in with the Jets. He didn't show you a damn thing in Carolina. He didn't show you a damn thing in San Francisco. So now all of a sudden you expected him to flash and show you that he is a top whatever star caliber quarterback in this league and lead the Minnesota Vikings to a playoff spot. No, I don't think so. I got them finishing last in this division, pretty much the same record that they had last year in 7-10. Even with Justin Jefferson. Moving on, Green Bay Packers, they finished 9-8, second in division last year. Matt LaFleur head coaching them. They lost Aaron Jones to Minnesota. They lost Jonathan Owens to Chicago. John Runyon, offensive lineman to the New York Giants, and Darnell Savage, they lost him to the Jacksonville Jags. They added running back Josh Jacobs. He was with the Raiders. Xavier McKinney came from the New York Giants. Andre Dillard, and Greg Joseph, the kicker. That's who they added. Jordan Love, they extended him 4 years, $220 million, making him the top 3 highest paid quarterback in the league. Let's look at their draft picks. They drafted Jordan Morgan, first round out of offensive lineman out of Alabama. Edrin Cooper, linebacker from Texas A&M. Javon Bullock, safety out of Georgia, and running back Marshawn Lord, third round pick out of USC. Green Bay, in my opinion, is, well, first of all, let me back up for a second. They made the wild card playoffs last year. We saw what they went to Dallas and did. I mean, they just completely tore the ass cheeks off of Dallas and handed it back to them. They beat Dallas 48-32. And then they went to San Francisco and lost by a field goal, 24-21. This team, in my opinion, is on the come up. This team, in my opinion, in this division is similar to because they already got a solid defense. This team, in my opinion, this division is similar to the Seattle Seahawks in the NFC West. On yesterday's episode, I said that the Seattle Seahawks is that team that right now they're looking up at. They're not good as the Rams quite yet. They're not good as San Francisco quite yet. But they're looking up at two teams that are gonna soon come down. And they are right there where they have pieces. Well, once those teams come down, they're gonna jump them. They're not gonna have to build a team to jump over those teams. They're already building a team. They already got a solid foundation on both sides of the ball. They just waiting on those teams to slightly start to fall while they still on the uptick, and they're gonna jump them. That's what I think about the Green Bay Packers in this division. You know, even though Detroit has got a chokehold on the division, and Dan Campbell doing a damn good job up there in Detroit, and what they got together, what they got put together up there in Detroit, I think the Green Bay Packers are kind of on the uptick. You know, I think they need to add a star wide receiver. You know, maybe if they go into the offseason and look at maybe a guy like T. Higgins, you know, because I think the receiving core they got in Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Jay Reed, I think them guys right there are twos. You know, I don't think that they have a number one guy. And don't get me wrong, they got good chemistry with Jordan Love. Jordan Love's a young guy. These are young receivers, and they building chemistry, and they kind of working and going through growing pains together, or went through growing pains together, and still developing good chemistry together. That's a good thing. But I think at some point you're going to need a proven receiver. You're going to need a guy that could be a number one guy. And I think T. Higgins, I don't see a scenario where Cincinnati franchise tags him again. You know, I don't see that because you still got to pay Jamar Chase if you Cincinnati. So I think after this season, especially when you drafted a wide receiver, Jermaine Burton out of Alabama. So I think that after this season, they're going to let or try to attempt to trade T. Higgins. They're going to try to do something because I don't see them bringing back T. Higgins when they got to pay Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase ain't got paid. He's looking to get paid now. So I think after this season, T. Higgins will be available. I don't think Cincinnati's going to bring him back. I think Green Bay will be a good spot for a guy like T. Higgins. And then you can have Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs. I like Romeo Doubs, actually, but I think he's a solid two. I wouldn't count on him as being the number one. I think if you bring a number one in and make Watson and Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed and those guys play the 2 and 3 behind somebody like T. Higgins, who I think could come in and be a damn good asset and be a damn good player in Green Bay. I think T. Higgins is a damn good receiver now. He just don't really get the recognition because he's playing opposite of Jamar Chase. You know, he's a good 2 to Jamar Chase, but I think he can serve as a 1 elsewhere, especially with an up-and-coming team with a young quarterback who they just inked in to a 4-year deal in Green Bay. I think a player like that in Green Bay would serve and help Jordan Love out. Also, these other wide receivers don't necessarily have to be the number one role. They could be more of what they naturally are, serving as number 2. That's what I think. That's just a scenario I'm putting out there. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. I'm just thinking a player like T. Higgins, who could be available this offseason, would be a good acquisition for a guy enjoying love in Green Bay. And just let the other guys be twos. So if I had to pick a knock on this team, it would be the wide receiver group. I think they need a solid receiver, to add with these guys. I think the Green Bay Packers are going to finish second in his division. They went 9-8 last year. I think they can win 10 games this year. I think they're just the continued growth of Jordan Love from what we originally saw Jordan Love come in as. And I know he sat behind Aaron Rodgers, but when he first got in, he got put in. He's grown much better since then into what he's into now. And I think the Green Bay Packers have like a shitload of confidence in this dude. That's why they gave him a 4-year, $220 million deal, making him a top 3 highest paid quarterback in the league. So I think this is one of them teams in this division compared to what Seattle is in the NFC West. This is one of those teams that, like I said, they got a solid foundation on both offense and defensive side of the ball, and they're just waiting on the team ahead of him to slightly dip so they can overtake that team for the division. And I think that's what Green Bay could be. Like I said, going into Dallas last year, doing what they did in Dallas, just beating the hell out of Dallas, just basically taking the ass cheeks off of them and handing it to them. The way that they beat them, 48-32, that game, and that game was at the end. Don't let the score dictate how the game was. This was just a complete demolition that the Green Bay Packers went into Dallas and did. They did a complete demolition. They had all of Dallas on suicide watch, not just the ones that went to the game and watched the game. The whole damn city of Dallas was on suicide watch. The Green Bay Packers came in there and just beat all kinds of hell out the Dallas Cowboys. So don't just look at the final score and think that the game was closer than what it was. The Dallas got all kinds of hell beat out of them by Green Bay. It is point blank, period. And then they went to San Francisco the following week and lost by a field goal. So with that, that team is growing. You know what I mean? They growing within this division. And if it wasn't for the job that Dan Campbell doing over there with the Detroit Lions, this team will win the division. So, I got them finishing second in the division again this year. They went 9-8 last year. I think they could possibly go 10-7 this year. You know what I'm saying? So, getting one more victory than they got last year. So that's a sign of growth. You won one more game this year than you are predicting that you're going to win one more game this year than you won last year at 9-8. You're still finishing second. It's just the fact that what Dan Campbell and Detroit Lions is doing over there is crazy. You know what I mean? Just, of what we know of Detroit Lion football, I'm 37, and this is probably the best Detroit Lion team or best era in Detroit Lion football that I can remember, and I'm 37. So they were even better. I mean, they had a solid team. I think they made the playoffs one year. They played the Cowboys when they had Megatron. I think and Dominic Sue was still there. Matthew Stafford. They made the playoffs, and they went to Dallas, and they got screwed. They got fucked over by a bad call. I think the bad call cost them the game, and the Dallas Cowboys benefited from the bad call, and they won the game. But that was the same season in which the Dallas Cowboys then went to Lambeau the next week, and the catch that was made by Dez was ruled not a catch. So that was some get back from the call that they benefit from the previous week against Detroit that cost the Detroit Lions the game, in my opinion. But moving on to the Detroit Lions, since I'm speaking on Detroit Lions, like I said, Dan Campbell, the head coach, they won the division last year. They went 12-5. They lost by 3 in the NFC Championship game at San Francisco. So you're looking at what they lost. They released cornerback Cam Sutton. They released Tracy Walker, the safety. They brought in C.J. Gardner-Johnson from the Eagles. Josh Reynolds, he went to the Broncos. Zach Ertz to the Commanders. Chase Lucas to San Francisco, and Jonah Jackson to the Rams. They added Marcus Davenport from the Saints, so you're gonna have a nice D-line up there in Detroit with Dan Campbell, with Aiden Hutchinson on one side, Marcus Davenport on the other one. Meek Robinson, they brought him in from the. They did a damn good job adding to the secondary. Meek Robinson, they brought him in from the Raiders. They traded for Carlton Davis from the Tampa Bay Bucks and got him in. They brought in a D tackle, DJ Reader from the Cincinnati Bengals. So you're gonna have DJ Reader in the middle in the trenches, and then you're gonna have Aiden Hutchinson and Marcus Davenport on the edges. So you got a nice D line. You got a nice front, a nasty front up front, along with Jack Campbell at the linebacker position, flying around making plays. Um, and you drafted two cornerbacks. And you brought two cornerbacks in free agency. You drafted Terrion Arnold in the first round out of Bama, and then you came back in the second round and drafted the cornerback out of Missouri. You also drafted the offensive lineman Giovanni Manu in the fourth round. So you also re-signed Jared Goff, 4 years, 212 million. You re-signed Penei Sewell along the offensive line, which was already solid. You had a damn good offensive line anyway, and you just ain't the best player along that offensive line. 4 years, 112 million for Penei Sewell. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, you signed him to a 4 year, $120 million deal. So, and now you're going to get a full season of Jameson Williams with Amon St. Brown. You also had a stud tight end in Sam Laporta, who played damn good last year. I know he did because I had him on my fantasy team, and he was going off. So you're looking at what the Detroit Lions did. I think they're going to win the division again. They went 12-5 last year. I think they can duplicate that and go 12-5 again this year, or possibly even 13-4. I haven't looked at the schedule, but I think what they brought in the draft and in free agency, I think defensively they're gonna be tough to beat. The secondary is gonna be damn good. Terrion Arnold, first round pick out of Alabama, he's been looking good in preseason, and I get it, it's preseason, so he's probably going up against a lot of 2s and 3s. But I think that he's going to be a solid pick or a solid player. And that was a damn good pick by Detroit in the first round. And then they came back and got another cornerback in the second round out of Missouri. And Missouri didn't have a bad defense last year either. So you're looking at they brought in 4 cornerbacks this offseason, drafted 2, and then brought in 2, one via trade with Carlton Davis from Tampa. That was a good trade, good pickup. And like I said, defensively, they're just gonna be good all around. The secondary gonna be good. The front foot gonna be good. And then you gonna have Jack Campbell, the linebacker, flying around making plays in the middle of that defense, calling the shots. Offensively, they're still gonna be good. They got a damn good offensive line. They just re-signed Jared Goff. He's gonna be slinging the ball all over the place. Amon-Ra St. Brown, your number one receiver, you inked him. Now you're going to get a full season of Jameson Williams, who can stretch the field and make athletic plays down the field. So now you should open up a lot of things underneath for other players. Sam Laporta should have another good year. So I think it's just a damn good team overall, what they've done in Detroit. And like I said, this is probably the best Detroit football that I've seen ever since I've been watching football. And like I said, I'm 37. So I haven't been watching football for all 37 years, but I've been watching football for, since I was a kid, old enough to know what football was. And as far back as I can remember of watching football, NFL football, this is probably the best time of Detroit Lions football since Dan Campbell has got there. It hasn't even been up and down since Dan Campbell got there. The Detroit Lions have consistently have been steadily getting better each year since Dan Campbell got there. When he first got there, yeah, they lost some games, but they wasn't losing games as badly and looking as ugly as they previously were. You can tell that Dan Campbell has brought a style of play. He has brought a culture to the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions have bought into the style of play. They have bought into the culture. And as a result, they've been getting better every year. And they won the division last year. They won 12 games. I'm thinking that they could do the same thing this year, go 12-5, possibly even 13-4, depending on, I haven't seen the schedule. But looking at what they added compared to what they lost, and the type of players that they added, and then re-signing a few of their own players, key players to that team, I think this is a damn good team, not just for this year. I think this is a damn good team for the next few years. And like I said, this team and what they're doing is overshadowing a team like Green Bay in that division, who, like I said, is right there building on both sides of the ball. And they got a young quarterback who they just also enjoy and love. So this is the best Detroit Lions football these past few years that I've seen since. Even though they had Megatron and Dominic Sue there and Matthew Stafford there, I get it. But I don't think those teams, or that team in particular that made the playoffs that I was talking about down in Dallas, is better than this team. Megatron, a hell of a player, Hall of Fame. I get all that. Matthew Stafford, good quarterback. I get all that. And Dominic Sue, the dominant D lineman. I get all that. But they just wasn't this team. They didn't have the chemistry. They didn't have really the culture that Dan Campbell has brought to this team in this era of Detroit Lions football. So yeah, man, that's why I got Detroit winning division. 12 and 5 last year. I think they, like I said, go 12 and 5 or possibly 13 and 4 this year. Um, this is going to be one of the better teams in the NFC, not just in the NFC North division. This is going to be one of the better teams in the NFC. Like I said, they've only gotten better since Dan Campbell got there. They haven't been good 1 year, underperformed 1 year, been slightly better, then underperformed. They've been steadily getting better, and as a result, they won 12 games last year and won the division. And I think they could do that or possibly win, go 13 and 4. In this division. I got them win the division again at either 12 and 5 or 13 and 4. So that's the order of the division I'm going. Detroit's going to win the division, followed by Green Bay, a wild card team, second in that division. Then I'm going to go Chicago third in that division, and then the Minnesota Vikings is going to finish fourth in that division. So we're going to move on to the NFC South. This was a bad division last year. I looked and I also realized that the NFC South was the only division in football last year that didn't have a team to win at least 10 games, that have double-digit wins. So you look at every other division in the NFL had at least one team that had double-digit wins in that division, except the NFC South. They had no teams with double-digit wins in that division. The damn Tampa Bay Bucks won the division at 9-8, and the Saints finished second with the same record, 9-8. So let's get to the NFC South. We're going to start with the team that won the division, which is the Tampa Bay Bucks. Like I said, with a 9-8 record, Todd Bowles, the head coach. They lost the offensive coordinator, Dave Canales, to the Carolina Panthers. So that right there could somewhat be problematic for the offense because that was the same guy that had Geno Smith looking good the first year he took over out there in Seattle. And he came to Tampa and had Baker Mayfield looking solid last year because we haven't seen Baker Mayfield look this good since he's been in the NFL. He didn't show it in Cleveland. He didn't do a damn thing with it in Carolina. And that short, brief stint he had out there with the LA Rams, he didn't do it either. So he finally gets over to Tampa. He gets with Dave Canales, who, like I said, had Geno Smith looking good the first year that Geno took over as the quarterback out there in Seattle, had him looking good that year. He comes to Tampa, gets with Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield finally has a solid year in Tampa under this guy. And now that he's gone, Dave Canales is now the head coach in Carolina. They also lost, like I said, Carlton Davis. They traded him to the Detroit Lions. Sean Murphy Bunting, they lost him to the Arizona Cardinals in free agency. Devin White, they lost him to the Eagles. Shaq Barrett, he ended up going to Miami in the offseason. He ended up going to Miami, but then he retired after he got to Miami. So they lost him. And Randy Gregory, they just recently lost him. I don't even count Randy Gregory as a loss because he never really done nothing for him. He had some situation going on with the NFL. The Tampa Bay Bucks took a chance on Randy Gregory. He never really done much for him, never did nothing meaningful for him. But now he's gone. They let him go. So he's out of here. So they re-signed Winfield Jr., 4 years, $84 million. They re-signed Tristan Wirfs, 5 year, $140 million, making him the highest paid offensive lineman. And they re-signed Baker Mayfield on a 3 year, $100 million deal. You look at what they added. They added safety Jordan Whitehead from the Jets. They added cornerback Bryce Hall also from the Jets. Sterling Shepard from the New York Giants. Ben Bredesen from the offensive line from the New York Giants. They also added offensive lineman Lorenz Nets. Now, I'm curious to see, there's two things here. You brought in an offensive lineman from the Jets. Now, I'm not saying that he can't play, but he was with he was on the New York Giants offensive line. I'm sorry, New York Giants. He was on their offensive line. We all know how shitty that offensive line looked. So I'm not sure if it was just being on that offensive line in New York or not. Maybe he'll play better not being in New York because we all know that New York offensive line was ass. It was just complete ass. And it didn't help that you had Daniel Jones back there behind that ass of an offensive line. You know, he ain't elusive enough I don't even know a quarterback that's elusive enough to avoid that many damn hits and that bad of an offensive line. You know, so I kind of curious about that. Hopefully he plays better than what the offensive line played because it ain't just one or two people on that offensive line that played bad with the New York Giants. It was the whole damn offensive line. Let's just be clear. All of them was ass. Every damn last one of them was ass. And it wasn't just one or two. Yeah, I mean, they was getting pressure with just 4 down linemen. The opponent didn't even have to send a damn blitz. You just put your 4D linemen up there, and they'll give you pressure. You know, they'll give you the damn pressure, and you will get the damn quarterback absolutely killed if that defense sends any kind of blitz where they stunting up front, crossing over. I mean, you gonna be confused that Giants offensive line so damn bad. You don't get the damn quarterback killed. He might as well just take a knee, kind of like a kneel down at the end of the game. That's exactly was how bad the offensive line played there. But I'm curious to know how well he's gonna play not being in New York. Now he's going down to Tampa, where they actually have a solid offensive line. Like I said, they just inked Tristan Wirfs, made him the highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL. So looking at Tampa, like I said, I'm curious to see how Baker Mayfield is gonna look this year. Is he gonna look as solid this season as he looked last season? Now that the offensive coordinator Dave Canales is going to be the head coach in Carolina, that's the jury's still out on that. I don't think the Tampa Bay Bucs is going to win the division this year. I got the Atlanta Falcons winning the NFC South this year. Now I think the Tampa Bay Bucs could finish second in the division. But like I said, that's all going to come down to how Baker Mayfield plays. If Baker Mayfield reverts back to playing like he did in Cleveland and Carolina, then they won't even finish second in his division. Like I said, they added Sterling Shepard to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So the wide receiver core is pretty solid. You still got a pretty solid offensive line. It's just going to come down to the play of Baker Mayfield. Is he going to play similar to what he did last season when Dave Canales was there? Like I said, he's now going to Carolina to become their head coach. Or is he going to revert back to being what we saw Baker Mayfield being Cleveland and Carolina, which was ass? And I get when he was in Carolina, the offensive line wasn't that damn good. But, what he showed in Cleveland, he didn't show nothing in Cleveland either. So you can't even say that even though the offensive line was bad in Carolina when he got there, we don't even know how much of that was just actually Baker Mayfield. But now that we've seen him actually get with somebody and look better with somebody that actually can make him look better, we're going to see can he kind of duplicate that going into this upcoming season. Because if he can't, I don't even got them. They probably could finish second in his division, but I don't got them winning 9 games if Baker Mayfield go back to being that, But as of now, jury's still out on that. We'll see. But by default, I think that Tampa is probably going to finish second in his division behind the Atlanta Falcons, which I'm going to get to in a second. But moving on, the New Orleans Saints finished second in his division, 9-8. Dennis Allen, I think he's the only coach. I think he is on the hot seat. I think he might be the only coach in his division that is on the hot seat. I think the New Orleans Saints are expected to be better under his tenure as the head coach than they were. They're not, and a lot of it got to be part of they were dealing with cap situations that they just pushed down the road. And now that they don't got down the road and met up with the cap situation, they're going to have to deal with the cap situation instead of finding a way and figuring it out when they was dealing with it. They just basically pushed it down the road, and now they've gotten down the road and met it again, and it's kind of costing them because they didn't even really add a lot in free agency. I mean, they brought in Chase Young, they brought in Willie Gay from Kansas City, and Cedric Wilson, the wide receiver out of Miami. They didn't make no real splashes, and they brought in Justin Simmons for a visit, but he didn't leave with a contract as he signed with Atlanta instead. So you're looking at what you lost in Marcus Davenport, who I just spoke about. The Detroit Lions earlier. They lost Marcus Davenport to the Detroit Lions. Michael Thomas, he's a free agent. He had an ugly tenure or ugly fallout and leave with the Saints. So, I'm not sure when or where he's going to land, if he lands somewhere. But they don't have him no more. Like I said, Marcus Davenport to the Lions. Jameis Winston, they lost him to the Cleveland Browns. Zach Bond, they lost him to the Eagles. Andrews Pete, offensive lineman, they lost him to the Raiders. And Malcolm Roach, they lost him to the Denver Broncos. And like I said, they didn't really add much in free agency because they still juggling and dealing with that whole cap debacle that they chose to push down the line or push down the road instead of kind of figuring it out and doing what they had to do to figure it out to kind of water it down some. But instead, they pushed that shit all the way down the road. Now that they're down the road to where they pushed it to, they got to deal with it. And as a result of that, you had to lose more than you could bring in that's going to help the team get better, this, that, and the third. And then you look at what they drafted. They drafted the offensive lineman in the first round out of Oregon State. They drafted Kool-Aid McKinstry in the second round out of Bama. They drafted QB Spencer Rattler in the 5th round. and Bud Mean, a wide receiver, in the 5th round out of Pitt. Now, I'm not sure what they're gonna do with Derek Carr because rumors out of the New Orleans Saints camp is that Spencer Rattler has actually been looking good. So he's been pretty much outperforming Derek Carr to some degree, and we've seen what Derek Carr has been since he's been in New Orleans. And I don't think his time in New Orleans has been what New Orleans thought his time in New Orleans should have been. So you're going to have to think about moving off of Derek Carr. I'm not sure how much, how many years or how much money left on his deal, but you might want to consider moving him, to get some type of assets back to kind of help you out, because what you've done is you've essentially pushed your problem down the road, and now you got to face your problem instead of figuring it out when you came across your problem sooner. But that was the right now. That's the thing about the right now in the NFL. Like, if you run into a cap situation and then you do all this restructuring of a contract, changing stuff into signing bonus, trying to save this against the cap, now you're starting to kind of push things down the road. And now once you get down the road years later, you run into that issue that you pushed down there, and it's kind of costing you because you can't even rebuild a team like you want because you're kicking out so much dead cap. You're doing this, you're doing that. And, and I get it. At the time, you were focused on winning now. So that problem, you pushed it down the road because you were focused on winning now. But the thing is, when you don't win at the time, you should be winning now. And that problem that you push down the road, you're going to have to sooner rather than later face that problem again. And it's going to be at a time that you don't want to see it. And it's going to cost you more then than it would have you just tried to fix the problem at the time you ran across it. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's going on with the Saints. I think Dennis Allen right now, like I said, it was 9-8 last year. I don't expect them to be 9-8 again this year. I probably expect them to be below 500. Not sure what they're going to do with Alvin Kamara, whether they're going to give him a contract extension at some point or not. Just looking at the team overall, I really can't see them being 9-8 again this year. They might be 8-9. You know what I'm saying? That's more like what they could be this year rather than 9-8. Not finishing second in his division, unless something drastic happens with the Tampa Bay Bucks or something like that. But like I said, Dennis Allen is. If I had to pick a coach in this division that was on the hot seat, it would be Dennis Allen. I don't think Todd Bowles is on the hot seat, and I damn sure don't think that Raheem Morris would be on the hot seat after 1 year. And Dave Canal's first. Both of those guys are first-year head coaches with their teams. Raheem Morris in Atlanta, and then Dave Canal in Carolina. So I don't see either one of those guys being on the hot seat. I don't think Todd Bowles is going to be on the hot seat. Dennis Allen would be the one, if I had to choose in this division, that would be on the hot seat in New Orleans. Let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons, the team that I got winning this division. They finished third in the division last year. They won 7 games. They brought in Raheem Morris to be the head coach. Let's look at who they lost. They lost tight end Jonas Smith to the Miami Dolphins. They traded Desmond Riddler to the Arizona Cardinals and got back Rondale Moore, who, by the way, has suffered a season-ending injury, so he's done for the season. Wide receiver Mac Hollins lost him to the Buffalo Bills. Offensive lineman Matt Hennessy, he went to the Eagles. Cordell Patterson in Pittsburgh, and they lost cornerback Jeff Okudah to the Houston Texans. So looking at what they added, because they did a damn good job this offseason. And I had said last season that the Atlanta Falcons are a quarterback away from being a real serious team, from doing some damage. And they went and added a quarterback. They added Kirk Cousins, 4 years, $180 million deal. They added Matthew Judon last week in a trade with the Pats. I think they sent him a 3rd-round pick over there. Sent New England a 3rd-round pick over there for Matthew Judon. So Matthew Judon right now, that trade is pretty much covering up for what they drafted to Michael Penix with the 8th overall pick. Because we all know that, or leading up to the draft, everybody had Atlanta with the 8th pick taking an edge rusher. And most mocks had them taking Dallas Turner out of Alabama. That's what Mo Mox had Atlanta taking leading up to the draft. Nobody in their goddamn right mind had them taking or seen them taking a Michael Penix. I don't give a damn what kind of excuse Arthur Blank put out there to the media or what kind of reasoning or whatever he say out there to the media. Ain't no way in the hell they went into this draft saying we're going to take Michael Penix, especially after signing Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million deal this offseason. They selling you that shit. So this Matthew Judon trade is making that Michael Penix is overshadowing that Michael Penix pick, because that pick should have been a defensive end. That pick should have been probably Dallas Turner. And I think the first defensive player didn't come off the board until the coach took old boy from UCLA, the DN from UCLA. I think he was the first he was the first defensive player taken off the board, if I'm not mistaken. Up until that point, it was all offense. So the first defensive player should have been taken off the board at 8, but it wasn't. It was Michael Penix with the Falcons. But they also added Darnell Mooney from the Bears, Ray McLeod from San Francisco, and they also added Justin Simmons last week as well. The all-pro safety that was, in Denver. So looking at what they drafted, Michael Penix with the 8th pick, like I said, it should have been a DN, but now that they got Matthew Judon, that covers up the mistake for them not taking a DN with the 8th pick. It looks better now because you got a DN, but nobody knew Matthew Judon was going to be available. So I can't even say it covers it up, but you can't even really say with confidence that it covers it up, because if you don't give Matthew Judon a deal, you basically got a 1-year rental for him. You gave up a 3rd-round pick for a 32-year-old edge rusher for a 1-year rental, if you don't give him a deal. And I think that's going to be the situation with both Justin Simmons and Matthew Judon. I don't think the Atlanta Falcons are going to pay a 32-year-old edge rusher the type of money he wants. And he'll be 33 before next season starts, 2025 season starts. He'll be 33 because he just turned 32. So going into the 2025 season, he'll be 33. And I don't think Atlanta's going to be trying to start paying a 33-year-old pass rusher, Matthew Judon, unless the Falcons do something like go to the NFC Championship game this year and he had a damn good season. Then I think they will kind of look to pay him, but they're going to factor in him being 33 before the start of next season. But I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to Justin Simmons on a 1-year deal. I don't know why the hell or how the hell he lasted that long, but for whatever reason, I guess people didn't see the value in him. I don't know why. He was an all-pro safety when he was in Denver. So, it was a good move by Atlanta to pick him up. I'm not sure why the hell nobody else looked or thought to pick him up. There were teams out there with cap space. Like I said, I don't know why the hell he sat that long in free agency, but I think this is just going to be a 1-year rental for Justin Simmons. Like I said, unless Atlanta do some NFC Championship game type shit and they come damn close to winning that game and fall just short in that game of getting to the Super Bowl, then I could see them kind of pumping money into bringing these guys back to make another run at it. But in the draft, they took 3 D linemen. They took a 2nd-round D lineman out of Clemson. They took 1 in the 3rd round out of Washington. They took another guy in the 4th round out of Oregon. So you know they fucked up by not taking an edge rusher with the 8th pick, because they went 2nd, 3rd, 4th round and took D linemen. So they know they should have taken an edge rusher with the 8th pick. I don't know at the last minute who decided to take Michael Penix with the 8th pick, because nobody knew Matthew Judon was going to be holding out in New England for a contract. Nobody knew that the New England Patriots was going to trade Matthew Judon, especially to the Falcons. The Falcons didn't even know he was going to be available. So for them to come out and try to say that we took Michael Penix because we knew we was going to get an edge rusher, you ain't damn know that. That's why you went 3 straight edge rushers in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round, because you didn't get the one in the 1st round. And once those edge rushers started coming off the board, they came off the board. And you had dibs to get any edge rushers you wanted with the 8th pick, because at that point, there was no defensive player taken off the board. There were all offensive players taken off the board. Like I said, the first defensive player wasn't taken off the board till like around the 12th or 13th pick, somewhere in there. And that went to Indy with the DN out of UCLA. I can't pronounce his name now, but he was the first defensive player taken in this draft. And he was an edge rusher, a position of need that would have helped the Falcons now. So don't just sit here and think that they already knew Matthew Judon was going to be available and he was going to choose to come to them and they were just going to be able to trade for him, because nobody knew this Matthew Judon situation was going to happen until the Patriots got in training camp and he was holding out. So that Matthew Judon trade right there, that covers up for them not taking the DN in the 1st round if they don't pay Matthew Judon. If they don't, it's just essentially a 1-year rental for a 3rd round pick. And then Matthew Judon, if he plays well, he'll get paid somewhere else. Somebody might pay him, somebody might not, and he might, stay back in Atlanta. But as of now, he's a Falcon. Justin Simmons is a Falcon. They went 7-10 last year. I think this team should win at least 11 games this year. They should go at least 11-6. They better go at least 11-6 unless they have devastating injuries on both sides of the ball. I think the one weak spot for the Falcons would be a cornerback opposite of AJ Terrell. Since they lost Jeff Okudah, and Jeff Okudah really ain't paying out to be what he was supposed to be. I think he was the 5th overall pick by the Detroit Lions. So he ain't really paying out to be what he was supposed to be since he joined the league anyway. So losing him, I don't think that was a big deal at all. That was just a one-year gamble that they took to see if it would pay off and Jeff Okudah would play better. Already having a number one corner in AJ Terrell there, they were just taking a gamble to see if he would play better alongside of AJ Terrell for a season. They gambled. It wasn't a big loss. You know, they lost him to Houston in free agency. But I think that they need to get another corner. And they don't really have no wiggle room to get another corner. I don't even think they have wiggle room to bring in another wide receiver since they just lost Rondé Moore to who they traded in the Desmond Ridder trade from Arizona. I don't even think they got enough wiggle room to bring him another receiver in to replace him. You know, since they just signed Justin Simmons, I'm not even sure they have that. You know, and I was thinking when I seen him go down, I was like, damn, they got Ray McCloud. But Ray McCloud, in my opinion, is more of a special teams guy. He's more of a guy in what they I'm not even going to say what they lost in Cordell Patterson because Cordell Patterson can be utilized as a running back. Ray McCloud can't. Ray McCloud is listed as a wide receiver, but he's better on special teams, returning punts and kicks. And, you know, I'm not sure exactly how this is going to look because they got new kickoff rules in the NFL now. I'm not sure how much that's going to affect his special teams ability on kickoffs, but he's more of a punt returner / kickoff guy, in my opinion, but he's listed as a wide receiver. Now, you want to go some 4 wide receiver sets, yeah, you can throw him out there, but you're not really looking for Ray McCloud to be on the field as a receiver majority of the time, but he now may have to with Rondale Moore going down. And I was thinking more so when Rondale Moore went down and I seen Juju Smith-Schuster get released by New England. And then I was thinking that maybe they could bring in Juju Smith to replace what they don't not have in Rondale Moore with a season-ending injury. But then they signed Justin Simmons, so that kind of threw that out the window. They don't really have wiggle room to really sign nobody else since they don't have no more cap space. And Matthew Judon, I read that he's going to play out this year and play for a contract. So, I mean, to me, that was just a sign that you ain't want to be in New England with Gerard Mayo because you could have done that in New England. Play for a contract. You just didn't like the situation that New England was going to be in. And I get it, you know, he kind of did that to get himself out of there, which I get it, you know what I mean? But if you're going to give that excuse, you could have gave that in New England and said that you're going to play for a contract in New England. I guess if you're going to play for a contract, you'd rather be playing for a team that's in a much better position than the team you own, such as the Falcons are in a much better position than the Patriots, and they got a much better chance or they're going to win the division, which I think the New England Patriots are going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. They ain't going to come close to winning the division. Meanwhile, Atlanta here, like I said, finished 7-10 last year. They should go at least 11-6 this year and win the division. You know, so that's a much better situation for Matthew Judon to be in. If you're going to use that, I'll play for a contract. If you're going to use that, then you would much rather be in a position in Atlanta with this team than being in New England with that team. Now, it could backfire, you know, but that was just a gamble he's willing to take, you know. And, you know, I can't blame him. Atlanta or Foxborough, Gerard Mayo or Raheem Morris. Both of those guys are new head coaches to their teams. It's just that Atlanta's in a better position. They got a better roster than what New England got. And like I said, they playing in a division in which that was the only division that didn't have a double-digit a team that had double-digit wins last year with the NFC South. So divisions, you know, is not good. So he's probably weighing his options and looking at that too, which I can't be mad and blame him. But yeah, they Atlanta, I'm expecting them to win the division. I'm expecting them to go at least 11-6 to win 4 more games than they won last year. They went 7-10 last year without a quarterback. You know, they lost some players, but they made some damn good additions to cover that up. So, you know, Kirk Cousins is not an issue with Kirk Cousins winning regular season games. The issue with Kirk Cousins and the problem would be is when you get to the postseason. He only has 1 postseason win. So if you got a team like this together and you make it to the postseason, you don't get a win, then I mean, you now got Michael Penix. So are you going to insert him after just 1 year of Kirk Cousins, or are you going to insert him after 2 years of Kirk Cousins? Because I think Michael Penix, in my opinion, it should be starting somewhere, but instead he's in Atlanta backing up Kirk Cousins. Uh, so yeah, it's never been an issue with Kirk Cousins winning regular season games. The issue with Kirk Cousins comes in is when you make the postseason. Are you going to win a postseason game? And he's only won one so far. So 11-6 is what I'm predicting the Falcons to go and win the division this year. Now we're gonna slide off to the Carolina Panthers, who ain't win but 2 goddamn games last year. They went 2-15, finished last in the division. They hired Dave Canales as the head coach, the former offensive coordinator that came out from Tampa Bay. You're looking at what they lost. They traded Deontay Jackson in a trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers that got them back Deontay Johnson, the wide receiver. They traded DN Brian Burns, who got traded to the New York Giants. And first of all, let me just say this: they should have traded Brian Burns before they traded him to the New York Giants. They had a much better deal from the LA Rams, reportedly, than the Giants than they got for the Giants. They reportedly would have gotten a first round pick back in the deal from the Rams, but they declined the deal, and now they end up having to trade him for a third round picks or something like that was involved. But Brian Burns no longer in Carolina. He's traded to the New York Giants. They lost Frankie Louvu, the linebacker, to the Washington Commanders, and safety Jeremy Chin to the Washington Commanders. Both of those guys are going over there with Dan Quinn in Washington. Tight end Hayden Hurst, he's no longer there. He's now out there with the LA Chargers with Harbaugh and Justin Herbert. Brady Bozeman, the center, they lost him. Von Bell, they lost him too. But Ejiro, I can't even pronounce his name. I don't even want to. Defensive coordinator. He was a former defensive coordinator in Denver. I don't want to fuck his name up. I done tried to say it and can't pronounce the shit. I was almost saying like the same word twice damn near. But just Google him and look him up. He's the defensive coordinator in Carolina. He was defensive coordinator last year in Carolina. He was the previous defensive coordinator in Denver. He was defensive coordinator in Denver when Justin Simmons was there. And a red flag popped up, and I was thinking, like, why the hell didn't they bring Justin Simmons over there with his former defensive coordinator? They not only didn't get him, but they let a division rival Atlanta Falcons get him on a 1 year, $8 million deal. I think that the Carolina Panthers could have signed Justin Simmons sooner. Maybe it was the money that Justin Simmons was asking for sooner, and the money that the Carolina Panthers just didn't have at the time. Or right now, when he got signed by the Falcons, they didn't have it available, whatever. But the defensive coordinator that's in Carolina was the defensive coordinator that Justin Simmons had when he was in Denver. So a red flag popped up, like, why the hell Carolina didn't think to go after Justin Simmons? I didn't even see a rumor of them bringing him in for a visit or even trying to acquire him in free agency. I didn't see that. But moving on, like I said, they brought in Deontay Johnson in a trade from Pittsburgh. They signed Jordan Fuller from the Rams. David Clowney from Baltimore came over. They went and got 3 offensive linemen in free agency. Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis, Robert Hunt from Miami, Damian Lewis from Seattle, and Josh Nigman. They brought him in as well. So it seemed to me like a big thing with them is going to be protection of Bryce Young. They're trying to protect Bryce Young up front, and they want to get to running the ball so they won't have putting so much risk and so much danger on Bryce Young, considering what he went through last year as a rookie. You know, the offensive lineman was hell. It was shit. Wasn't worth a damn. You know, so I can't blame all of what happened last year on Bryce Young. He was put into a situation in which he shouldn't have been put into. The damn offensive line, the team, none of that shit was constructed yet for a rookie quarterback, especially a rookie quarterback of Bryce Young's stature. You know, so not only did you get the quarterback beat the hell last year, you also helped out the Chicago Bears with the stupidity and over-aggressiveness trying to trade up for him, because you weren't just missing a quarterback. You was missing a whole lot of shit. And once Bryce Young got there, it was evident of all the shit that you was missing. And now you gave up assets to move up to get a guy when you could have used those assets to fill voids where you needed to be filled elsewhere. But they brought in linebacker Josie Jewell from Denver. You know, Dane Jackson from the Bills, and linebacker DJ Warner from the Vikings. And they also brought in a linebacker Clavon Chason from Jacksonville. They got him too, if I pronounce it right. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Came from Jacksonville. They brought him in too. But you're looking at what they did. They traded back into the first round and drafted wide receiver Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina in the first round. They got running back Jonathan Brooks in the second round. I think he's going to be back around week 4, week 5, somewhere in there because he's really recovering from a torn ACL that he suffered last year at Texas. So what they, like I said, what they're going to do is try to beef up the offensive line to not only protect Bryce Young, but they're also going to run the ball. Miles Sanders is there. Chuba Hubbard is there. They had Rashad Penny there until he retired, and then they drafted Jonathan Brooks. So Jonathan Brooks is going to, like I said, come in around week 4, week 5 or something like that, and he should be set to go around that time. So they have a stable of backs in Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, and now Jonathan Brooks, who they drafted in the second round out of Texas. They also drafted a linebacker, Trevin Wallace, out of Kentucky. They drafted tight end Jatravion Sanders out of Texas in the 4th round. And then they got Chu Smith-Wade, the cornerback out of Washington State. I think he's going to be playing more of a nickel for them. They got him in the 5th round. But back to what they did, bringing in 3 offensive linemen in free agency. They spent a lot of money. They spent big money on the offensive line in this year's free agency. So the main thing is protection for Bryce Young, as well as establish the ground game to kind of cut back and cut down on some of the mistakes that Bryce Young made last year. Now, Dave Canales, like I said, was the one that had Geno Smith looking good when Geno took over out there in Seattle. And then he had Baker Mayfield looking solid last season. So their hopes is that Dave Canales can come in here and have Bryce Young looking like he had Geno and Baker Mayfield looking, which was good, solid. But they had to go and spend big on his offensive line because the offensive line wasn't worth a damn. It was ass. You just call it what it is. They wasn't worth a damn. So, they went and spent big on the offensive line to protect Bryce Young and also to establish the ground game with Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, and then the second round draft pick, Jonathan Brooks out of Texas. Like I said, who will be back around week 4, week 5. So they had to go in, establish the ground game, get bigger up front on the offensive line. I think the defensively, they weren't bad defensively. I think they were just so ass on the offensive side of the ball that it compromised the defense. Defensively, the Carolina Panthers wasn't as bad as people thought they were. If you go and look up what they ranked defensively, it wasn't bad at all. Hell, they might have finished the season as a top 10 defense. It's just the fact that the offense was so bad, they couldn't move the ball, and they kept the defense on the field much longer than the defense should have been on the field because they didn't get no help from the offense, and they were put in bad situations with 3 and outs, with costly turnovers, and they got put on the field way more because the offense couldn't move the ball and keep them a rest consistently enough to kind of show more on the defensive ball than what they did, defensive side of the ball than what they did. But even then, they still, in certain situations, they bend, but they didn't break. And I think if you go back and look it up defensively, I think the Carolina Panthers, like I said, they might have finished in the top 10 defensively last year. It's just that the offense was so goddamn bad and putting the defense in such bad positions that it overshadowed what the defense actually was. And I think they made some pretty solid defensive additions. They got a lot of depth on the defensive side of the ball, man. And they brought in some guys that fits the scheme of the coordinator there. So I think that this team is going to be better than 2 wins. I think it could be between Carolina and the Saints battling for the last spot in this division, finishing last in this division. You can't be no worse than two goddamn wins that you had last year. That was just piss poor. That was ass. I think that a lot of this shit got to do with the over aggressiveness of the owner, not really having a specific game plan, not really having a specific direction or plan for this team. They being over aggressive at times they shouldn't be in spots that they shouldn't be in, and it's costing them. But I think what they've done a good job of the position that they've been put in by the over aggression of the damn owner, trying to build without a damn foundation. And a lot of times that's what's happened. If you look at the recent moves that they made that didn't work for them, they traded for Sam Darnold, that didn't work. They brought in Baker Mayfield, that didn't work. Now they traded up a lot of assets in which you see what the Chicago Bears have benefited from off of the over aggressiveness of the Carolina Panthers. They brought in Bryce Young into a situation in which he shouldn't have been brought into because they were over aggressive, and that ain't, it was a terrible rookie year. And I think the best thing that they could have done was fire Frank Reich, because Frank Reich wasn't the guy. I don't know why the hell they keep passing around these recycled ass coaches. especially when you're trying to rebuild with a young team. He doesn't have the chemistry. He doesn't have the formula to rebuild a young team. They also said that Frank Wright was supposed to be some kind of a quarterback guru that would have been a good fit for Bryce Young. That shit didn't work. You only won 2 goddamn games last year. So, so the best thing they could have did was get rid of Frank Wright, which they did, and go and get a guy who made Geno Smith look good, because we all know up until what Geno Smith did out in Seattle when he took over, Geno Smith didn't look that damn good. He got out there with Dave Canales in the first year he took over. He looked good. Baker Mayfield has looked the best that he's ever looked, and Geno Smith too has looked the best that he's ever looked under Dave Canales as the coordinator. So bringing him in was probably a good move to see what they can get him to make Bryce Young look like what they supposed to. Because remember, Bryce Young was the first overall pick. Carolina traded up with the Chicago Bears to get Bryce Young. They took Bryce Young ahead of C.J. Stroud with the first overall pick. I think the people up there in Chicago is clapping, cheering, and probably sending bottles of goddamn champagne to the people down, or David Tepper down there in Charlotte, for the over aggressiveness that the Chicago Bears are now benefiting from. So now what you got to do is you can't afford to lose another coach, because you done already went through the Matt Rule era. You done already went Frank Wright. He wasn't the guy. And now you're on your third coach in 3 years. So, you can't fire this guy. So even if he doesn't have the type of season you think, you only won 2 goddamn games last year. So if this man goes 5-12 this year, that's better than what you had in 2 and goddamn 15 last year, which I think they should win more than 5 games. Because I looked at their schedule. Their schedule really ain't. It's tough, but it ain't too tough. It ain't tough to the point where they should have another 2 goddamn win season. I think this team, with the right leadership, bringing in the veteran guys, if they can have a similar defense that they had last year, and if Bryce Young could take another step with this guy, Dave Canales, as the head coach. They drafted Xavier Legette, received in the first round out of South Carolina. He's like 6'4". Kind of reminds you of a DK Metcalf-ish type of guy. He's kind of like a DK Metcalf-ish type of guy. He jumped up the boards, especially around the Senior Bowl time. He kind of just jumped up the boards. Deontay Johnson, they got him in a trade from Pittsburgh. Like I said, and they had Adam Thielen there already, and they had Terrence Marshall there, and Jonathan Mingo, a receiver they took last year or year before. It was like the second or third round or something like that. So they got some pretty. There's no wide receiver core to kind of scare you or nothing like that. But I think that they are better now than they were last year, with the pieces that they added on both sides of the ball, with the money that they spent up front. Just hope that they didn't overpay for low quality talent, paying top dollar for low quality offensive linemen. Just hopefully the offensive linemen can hold up to protect Bryce Young, not only protect Bryce Young, but establish a ground game that will also protect Bryce Young if they can get a ground game established with the offensive lineman up front. Hopefully that's the case for Carolina. If that's the case for Carolina, I can see them going from 2 wins last year to about 6 wins this year. Going 6-10, going from 2-15 to 6-10 is an improvement. Hopefully they can stay healthy. Because we don't need no more of this 2-15 goddamn football. This is not what people want to see. Don't nobody want to see this ass trash. And that's exactly what it was with 2-15 last year under Frank Wright. So the best thing they could have did so far was fire his ass, which they did, and then bring in a guy that helped other guys that didn't look good up until Dave Canales worked with him. And like I said, Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield. Under the guy, Dave Canales, both Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith have looked their best under this guy. So hopefully they thinking that they could get Bryce Young to look what they need him to look like for what they spent to trade all the way up to the first overall pick to get him with the Chicago Bears. So I think that they could probably, more than likely, they will finish last, but I think they can go 6-10 instead of 2-15. So that's the order I got. The NFC South division. I think Atlanta's gonna win the division at 11-6 record. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could probably go 8-9. I think and finish second. I think New Orleans could probably go 8-9 and finish third. And I think probably the Carolina Panthers could probably go 6-11 or maybe 7-10. You know what I'm saying? Maybe 7-10. But I still think they'll finish last in the division. unless something drastic happened with those other two teams. But like I said, I got Atlanta win 11 games, at least going at least 11-6, winning that division and getting to the postseason. Now, what they do in the postseason with Kirk Cousins, that's a whole nother story. But I think they good enough with Kirk Cousins to win 11, go 11-6, and get there, win the division, and get to the postseason. The knock on Kirk Cousins is his performance in the postseason. With only one postseason win, that what they do in Atlanta get there, that's a whole other story. I'm just speaking on right now. They can win the division. 11-6 is what I got the Atlanta Falcons winning the NFC South with. But I'm about to get up out of here, man. Like I said, appreciate y'all for tuning in. Make sure y'all head over to YouTube, subscribe, tap that notification bell so you can get notified when I drop new content. Head over to IG, follow my personal page, Ralph_Sneaks. Follow the sports page, Damn_U2_Sports Talk. Also head over to X or Twitter, whichever one you call it, and Damn U2 Sports Talk. That's where you can follow the content over there. Until the next episode, peace.